KSI versus Logan Paul. Who's gonna win? This video is very different than the other videos I do, but I just wanted to talk about this fight because I'm a boxing fan and this is related to YouTube, and obviously I run a YouTube channel, so I just wanted to talk about it. So who do I think is gonna win? As a boxing fan, I gotta say, I'll keep it short, I think Logan Paul's gonna win. And as for Deji and Jake Paul, I don't know. Jake Paul seems a lot fitter than Deji. Deji doesn't have any fighting experience as far as I know. So I might have to side with Jake Paul on there. I ain't a fan of the Pauls, but it's just how it is. KSI did have that boxing fight with Joe Weller, but Joe Weller stood there like a punching bag, and KSI couldn't knock him down. He got the knockout, but that was because the ref had to step in and stop it. But, that very short sparring footage, and I know in boxing you can't go by just short sparring footage, but the very short sparring footage that Logan Paul released, where he was sparring a way overweight guy, but he knocked him down. And another thing I noticed, that I don't think a lot of people in the media noticed because they're like, oh my god, he knocked him down, is he was bouncing. And he was throwing combinations. He wasn't just throwing, he wasn't just standing there, he wasn't flat-footed. That was the problem with Joe Weller. He was flat-footed, he wasn't moving his head, and he barely threw. And that's how Joe Weller lost. But those main problems that, in my view, were the things that ruined Joe Weller's chances, I don't think Logan Paul is going to have those problems. And again, excuse me, he has the height advantage, the reach advantage, and I think the weight advantage as well because they had the weigh-in recently. He's coming in with all those statistical advantages, and he won't be a sitting duck like Joe Weller. So I think, as for KSI, listen, I know I probably don't punch as hard, but I don't think KSI punches hard when it comes to boxing. His punches clearly left a mark on Joe Weller, but that's what happens when you get to punch something multiple times without resistance, pretty much. But otherwise, he doesn't really punch the hardest, as far as what I've seen. He wasn't able to knock Joe Weller down, and Joe Weller was pretty much just standing there. So that's not good. That's not a good sign to me. But I feel like he probably did train harder now than he did with Joe Weller because this is a much bigger fight, a clearly better opponent. But I just don't know if he has the fitness. I don't know if he has the experience fighting an actually decent opponent or a harder opponent. Now listen, Logan Paul has no boxing experience. There is no boxing videos, much of them. He hasn't had a boxing fight like KSI has, but that small sparring footage I saw, I think it just revealed so much. And the fact that he had that, it was kind of an awkward angle too. It was a very awkward angle. I believe it was like a mix of a hook and an uppercut on the left corner of your face, or if you're looking from your face, the right corner, but the left corner from a person that's punching someone's face perspective. A kind of awkward angle, but he landed it perfectly timed, and with a decent enough power to knock the guy down, to shake the guy up with headgear. So, who do I think is gonna win? I think Logan Paul's gonna win that fight. I think it's just gonna be that case. I think it will be kind of satisfying to see. I know a lot of people are rooting for KSI. Don't get the wrong idea. I ain't a Logan Paul fan. I think it's gonna be satisfying to see, in my view, KSI losing, because he's been so extra when it comes to his confidence. It really is cockiness. He's saying he's gonna go pro. He's gonna win a championship there. He's not gonna go pro. I don't think he's gonna go pro. I don't think there's a chance he's gonna go pro. I don't think he'll succeed in the pro level. Maybe at like weak fighters, well-named fighters, but champions. I don't know if he can face a champion. I don't know if he has enough power. Not to mention, he's also. I looked this up. I looked at their weigh-in. What they really weigh. They're around light heavyweight. Now they are the appropriate height. But I tell you what, KSI's power is not the appropriate power for a light heavyweight. But I digress. I think it's gonna be a fun fight to watch. I think it's good for boxing. I think attention is good for boxing. To be honest with you, I think what made I've heard before that back in the 1900s, boxing was the sport. It was the American sport. People talked, people lived boxing. And now, boxing isn't part of everybody's everyday experience, But putting boxing in a spotlight, I think there's multiple steps to this. I think one of the greatest steps was making it free on TV. For example, you got the what's that that show? Premier Boxing Champions. You got Premier Boxing Champions. Sometimes you got free fights on ESPN. You got Vasyl Lomachenko fighting on ESPN. That's amazing to me. That's amazing to me because this is the highest caliber fighter there is in this world, and he's fighting on ESPN. I think those two watching boxing for free on your cable is going to bring boxing back. But I think this accelerated the boxing experience. And personally, I don't mind seeing public figures duke it out in the ring. I don't mind seeing that. I think that's a fun way to deal with the problems. I want to see politicians duke it out in the ring. What's his name? Jimmy Kimmel had a basketball match with one-on-one with Ted Cruz. How about we put Ted Cruz in the ring with, I don't know, Jimmy Kimmel or someone his age, I think that would be great. But yeah, so pretty much all in all, my predictions is Logan Paul is going to beat KSI because KSI has not faced an opponent that has that footwork. I don't know how amazing his footwork, but isn't a flat-footed fighter. He's going to fight a non-flat-footed fighter, a fighter that throws combinations, and a fighter that seems to have much more control of what they do, and much more control of, excuse me. They have much more form in a sense. He looks better than how Joe Weller looked fighting. So that's why I think Logan Paul is going to win. And not to mention, he's also really fit from what I've seen. And during the weigh-in, they're all fit, maybe except for Deji. I'm just kidding. But they're all pretty fit. So I think that but Logan Paul, I would say, has a long experience being fit, and Jake Paul. They were in wrestling, so they must have had to be fit for that. And when I bring up Jake Paul, so Jake Paul versus Deji, I think that Jake Paul's going to win. Deji just really hasn't shown me anything that shows he's impressive enough or talented enough in the boxing sense. So, yeah, I think both Pauls are going to win. Don't misinterpret it and think I'm a fan of them. I'm not. But as a boxing fan, I think they're going to win.